Okay, so I thought I'd make a video to showcase some of the mods I've made to the Sur Ron so far. I guess I'll start with the front fender. I looked at a few different options for this, but ultimately ended up going with the toe peak defender. I liked this one because it sits pretty close down to the wheel, and that seems like that really probably provides the most actual, like, mud protection, especially with the controller being back here. As you can see, as the front wheel comes around, it generally keeps mud from going much of anywhere except maybe just on the very lower part down there. I also added in this rubber extension. The brand is SKS. If you go to the Amazon listing for the Toe Peak Defender, there's somebody in the comments who suggested adding this in, and it kind of closes in that gap in the middle just to, you know, keep even more mud off. For the rear fender, I actually also went with a Toe Peak Defender. This is the one that's made, obviously, for a bicycle to, like, clamp on the seat post. I originally went with a different rear fender that I just kind of bolted on in a similar fashion, and it ended up ripping off on the interstate. So this is what I went with as the second attempt. And this is probably the most convoluted mod I've made to it. Took a couple of aluminum angles, bolted them together, as you can see, attached it with bolts down into the rear swing arm here with a spacer, there with a spacer, and then actually cut out almost like an arc right there, and did some aluminum brazing, which is basically poor man's welding, to attach this tubing to it, and then actually just clamped it on like it would normally attach. Had to get rid of the quick release because there wasn't enough room to actually operate it down in there. But it provides pretty good coverage to the underside, you know. I probably wouldn't have added this on if I was just doing that, but with my original fender design, I had the kind of Toe Peak Defender that mounts right up under the fork. I cut it in half, and half of it is right there. As you can see, it's just kind of bolted on also, so when you stand back, it, you know, provides pretty good coverage most of the way around. Anyway, as for kind of the street legal stuff, I ended up wiring my own blinkers onto the front and back. As you can see right here, these are just a couple of tiny little cheapies that I picked up off of Amazon. Wired them together myself. There's a little heat shrink there, but mostly electrical tape. Wires run through here. I tucked a blinker relay up in the near the head tube, up in this space. And actually, most of the wiring, though, I actually ended up doing underneath the seat, which I took the bolts out of this just to illustrate this a little bit better. I slapped a terminal block here, and I can't remember which of these wires goes where, but in order to do this, I actually had to cut out all of those plastic rivets, or get rid of them, that normally hold this plastic tray in, because of course normally you have to pop this tray off in order to access the bolts that hold the seat on. So I wanted to be able to take the seat off while leaving the tray on. So in order to do that, well, I'll show you. Drilled some 5/8 inch holes right here, right underneath the bolts. Cut some grooves right there. And then got some little rubber plugs, 5/8 inch. And they can just seat right up in there. But that allows me to put the seat on and then bolt it on without removing the plastic tray. So that way I could mount all of this over here. This is the piece of plastic, I think from a Honda, I forget, CRF 60 something, I can't remember the size of it. I had to kind of trim that up with a box cutter. It's not the most beautiful cut, but it works, just to cover the end of this. And as for the actual rear tail extension, it's a couple of aluminum angles, obviously, bolted on just with the existing holes that were here. And I had to drill these holes all the way through because the holes only, of course, go into one side of this tubing. So I had to run the hole all the way through the opposite side in order to put bolts through. Comes back, and then this is actually a tail tidy intended for a DRZ 400. I'd just used one of those before, and so I already had reference to one and thought it would work pretty well, and it turned out perfect in terms of size. You can see these run exactly parallel, and then they seat just nicely under here. Just bolted it on, put a cross support right here, and then the actual fairing, see the bolt coming through with a spacer, just drops down under there. There we go. There we go. So anyway, so that's that. Rear view mirrors, pretty self-explanatory. Got those on Amazon also. Wanted to go with the under the handlebar just to make it look cooler, cleaner, you know. The one on the left, I had to extend out a bit with like a spacer and a not the original bolt, just to make it longer, to make it fit with this blinker switch. There we go. Demonstrate the blinkers real quick. Left blinker. Right, obviously. So I thought about replacing this entire cluster with like a horn slash blinker slash whatever combo, but I ended up just going with like a double throw center off rocker switch, where this is left and this is right. Obviously I would have preferred if it actually rocked left and right, but I couldn't find a switch that would that was oriented in that direction. Regardless, it works pretty well. It's not that hard to turn on and off when I'm riding. And oh, I guess lastly, the brake switch. So I took the motor shut-off wires that go to both of the brakes, ran them back down into this mess down here, and I used that to turn on the brake light. So you can see it turn on when I pull the brake lever. It does the same with both sides. So, and I guess the other thing is this ram mount. This is I think listed on Amazon as a motorcycle handlebar mount, and it just comes with this ball and stem sort of thing and a couple of bolts that are sent with it. I had to get a bolt that, of course, matched the thread of the one that was originally in the stem here, which I think was M6 by 1.0. I ended up having to go with 60 millimeter length in order to have it long enough to go from the top of this ball all the way through. And then I also had to put a little spacer kind of in between here, just to keep, you know, make this a little more sturdy, keep it from sliding around, because this doesn't actually seat down into this plate here. But it works pretty well. It's pretty sturdy. You can move the whole bike around with it. And I like having it just right in the center of the handlebar and not having to like have an additional clamp on there. So, well, I believe that's all of the mods I've made to this thing so far. I'll probably look to change the skid plate at some point and upgrade the headlight later. But I guess that's about it. Thanks.